Ladies and gentlemen, God bless the families who are grieving in New York and Texas. There's no words to describe the crime against humanity, the crimes against humanity, the barbarism, the evil. It's unspeakable. The criminals, what they did, it's just unspeakable. And so I'm going to try to be as respectful and abide by YouTube guidelines. I'm going to start first with a Fox News article, and if it's not accurate below, if you, I don't know if I'm going to have a comment section. I might not, but Squad Dems spent over, $325,000 on private security last year, despite defund police rhetoric. Representative Bush, who spent about $200,000 on private security in 2021, said defunding the police has to happen. Sorry, not everybody has $325,000 to spend on armed security. Now, how was the lunatic, how was he stopped? Okay, somebody or a couple of people or one man in particular was brave enough and courageous enough to engage in reciprocal, I'll just use the phrase reciprocal force. Okay, the only way to defeat or to protect lives is not through legislation that criminals don't care about. Like criminals who have lost their mind. Okay, this is a very simple concept, so I'm going to speak in very simple terms for morally superior, wonderful, highly educated liberal Democrats who think their indignation will protect anyone. Of course, the indignation that they express is something that we're all indignant, we're all upset, we're all horrified, and we're all frightened, and we're all concerned and worried. And we can't believe how one human being could take the lives of angels. You know, these atrocities are taking place because there's some kind of phenomenon, yes, in the United States of America. There's probably many reasons it doesn't happen in other countries, and those reasons have nothing to do with legislation pertaining to the Second Amendment because there are other means by which maniacs inflict harm and damage in other countries. And yes, the loss of life in many instances is equivalent. Because even in those countries, evil criminals become creative. I'm not going to get into the stories now. But in terms of Trump and the association he's speaking at in Texas, the atrocities that took place have literally nothing to do with that association and literally nothing to do with the Second Amendment. Do you think, morally superior, highly educated liberal Democrat, that a maniac intent upon hurting as many people as possible will abide by your laws? A maniac who has lost his mind and who wants to be considered forever the most evil human being that's ever existed on this planet is not going to say, oh, new legislation will stop me, because that person could go to anyone selling illegal narcotics and then through that person find the weapons that he wants. There's a million ways, unfortunately, to obtain anything in this world, especially if you've lost your mind and you are intent on committing the most heinous, barbaric, brutal, criminal activity known to humanity. Okay? These are simple concepts that wonderful, highly educated, really beautiful, morally superior liberal Democrats can't process. In their mind, and I used to I wrote several articles opposing the Second Amendment, and then I realized, it took me a couple years to realize that the Second Amendment empowers people. That's why I wrote in the Huffington Post that African American and black men should open carry. And I wrote that article in the Huffington Post. You could see it on my website, H.A. Goodman, but I'll put it below in the description, or I'll put it in the pinned comment, as a means to protect as a means to further civil rights. Now, that, by the way, that article in the Huffington Post caused the editors not to allow me to self-publish in the Huffington Post. So all my Bernie articles went through editors that gave a stamp of approval and all of that. So anyway, when my writing was shared hundreds of thousands of times, that went through the editors at the Huffington Post and other publications. But a criminal, here's a very simple concept. Hopefully, highly educated Democrats can understand this. A criminal who has lost his mind, who is intent upon harming as many people as possible, is not going to care about legislation. Because in both instances, especially in New York, numerous laws were ignored by the criminals. We live in a society where if you ban anything, it's not going to make it more difficult for a person who has completely snapped to commit atrocities. You can see what happened in Oklahoma City decades back. God forbid. You can see evil people will circumvent laws and try to will commit the evil if they're not stopped with reciprocal force, meaning they're going to try to utilize certain weapons. Those weapons then should, which is the only way to stop these things from taking place, be utilized against them, which means that you have to empower, whether it's teachers or schools or law enforcement. I have no clue. I don't judge law enforcement. I respect law enforcement, but I don't understand the initial response in Texas. I don't understand that. And it took some other law enforcement to finally stop that person, that lunatic. So how is that lunatic stopped? How is the lunatic in New York stopped? Okay? Overwhelming reciprocal force where the person committing the crime is no longer able to commit that crime. That's the only way to protect Americans. And Trump, by the way, the association that there's other associations. I'm not even a part of that. So I used to be. I'm not even a part of that association. And I support the Second Amendment now. Okay? When I had a threat upon my life, the police literally told me, arm yourself. So I did. And I don't have $300,000 for private security like Democratic congresswomen or Democratic congressmen. You don't have $300,000 probably watching this to just spend on private security. Okay? So the Second Amendment empowers people. It doesn't harm people. It literally has nothing to do with, you could ban what was utilized, and then you'll have to ban, literally, you have to erase the Second Amendment. Because if you allow a diabolical criminal 10 minutes, much less 1 hour, there's untold carnage. And you could look what took place in Virginia, I believe it's Virginia Tech in 2008. And that was not with what was utilized in New York or Texas. Okay? You can't ban those, or the Democrats would want to probably ban those. The thing is, you have Hollywood celebrities, you have pundits, you have journalists, you have people outraged, but your indignation and your outrage and your shock and your horror, just like mine, will not save anybody. Emotions are not going to save anybody. Neither are further laws that criminals will not abide by. I mean, the moral of the story, or the lesson here to be learned by highly educated, really wonderful, super awesome liberal Democrats is here. Focus. Criminals who've lost their mind, intent upon harming as many people as possible, will not follow your laws. I'm not speaking on behalf of those maniacs. I'm looking at reality. Reality is that you are going to only harm people who want to protect themselves and their families. Because those people are going to abide by the laws you create. Now, there were laws, by the way, in New York that should have stopped what took place. didn't work. When I go to synagogue, for example, in Southern California, there are armed guards there for the High Holy Days. Okay? And by the way, many of the people that I'm praying with are wonderful, morally superior liberal Democrats who don't like the Second Amendment, except when, of course, it's protecting them while they're praying where I'm praying alongside with them. So, we're all praying and we're being protected by people with weapons that they find very offensive. It's a moral imperative to protect your family, to protect schools, to protect the vulnerable, to protect innocent. It's a moral imperative. The legislation and the laws that Democrats haven't actually proposed will not stop people intent on not following those laws. Laws work when people follow them, not when criminals find very easy or creative ways to circumvent them and cause even more harm. Criminals will not abide by the laws that you enact. So therefore, you need reciprocal force. We'll just use that term to ensure that anyone intent upon ruining the lives of innocents has their own life ruined immediately. This is not a difficult concept to understand, but of course, it probably is for highly educated, really wonderful, awesome liberal Democrats. I respect them greatly because they're really wonderful people. And I used to be one. Anyway, hit subscribe to this channel right now. Hit subscribe to the Stock Market Crash channel and the Bitcoin Crash to 10,000 or lower channel. If you want to support my work, my Patreon is below. And I say this with all due respect. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.